History tells us that empires fall, dynasties crumble, but rarely do we ask, what if? What if one small detail had been different? In 69 BC, a woman was born who would reshape the Mediterranean world. Her name was Cleopatra. She would seduce Rome's greatest generals. She would negotiate with emperors. She would fight to preserve her nation against impossible odds. But here is the paradox. Her power did not come from armies or wealth alone. It came from intelligence, from charisma, from the ability to make men want to give her what she demanded. And perhaps from something far more trivial. This is the story of how one woman's face changed the world.
Education shaped Cleopatra from childhood. In her palace chamber, surrounded by papyri and wise tutors, she mastered not merely one discipline, but many. Mathematics and geometry, astronomy, philosophy, religious texts. But what truly distinguished her was languages. While previous Ptolemaic rulers rarely learned Egyptian, Cleopatra commanded 9 distinct tongues: Greek, Egyptian, Aramaic, Hebrew, Arabic, Persian, and others. The historian Plutarch would later describe her voice as an instrument of many strings, capable of shifting between languages with such fluency that she rarely required interpreters. This was not mere linguistics. This was calculated power. Each language unlocked diplomatic doors. Each word became a tool of political negotiation. Her tutors taught her that knowledge itself was the greatest weapon a ruler could wield. In that palace chamber, a young woman was being deliberately shaped into something unprecedented. A female ruler who could command not merely through royal authority, but through intellect, communication, and understanding. Her education was not an accident. It was deliberate preparation, the foundation for extraordinary influence.
Power in ancient Alexandria was not held by the strongest. It was held by those who could control the narrative. Her younger brother Ptolemy XIV sat upon the throne, but he was no pharaoh. He was a child, a puppet. The advisors who surrounded him had grown bold. They whispered in his ear, filling his mind with poison. Slowly, they convinced him that his sister was a threat. The court that had once served Cleopatra now served others. And as her power crumbled within those marble walls, something far worse began to happen beyond them. The Nile would not rise. For months, the river that gave life to all Egypt remained stubbornly low. Crops withered in fields that should have been green. Granaries emptied. Children went hungry. A pharaoh could survive political defeat, but no pharaoh could survive the anger of a starving people. In palace chambers lit by oil lamps, her enemies plotted her final defeat. And in her private quarters, Cleopatra faced a choice that would define her entire existence. Fight a battle she could not win, or abandon everything and fight another day. In the darkness of night, she fled Alexandria. She left behind her throne. She carried only documents, coins, and something no army could take from her: determination. As her boat moved away from the city lights, as Alexandria became nothing more than a distant silhouette on the horizon, Cleopatra understood something fundamental. This was not the end of her story. It was the end of one chapter. A girl who ruled from a palace was now a woman who would rule from nothing. But nothing, she would learn, was sometimes more powerful than everything. This is where her legend truly began.
History says Cleopatra seduced Caesar. The truth was far more brilliant. She arrived in Alexandria as an exile. He was Rome's greatest general, master of a continent. She had nothing but intelligence, yet she convinced him to reclaim her throne. The famous story tells of her arriving in a carpet, a dramatic entrance to bypass his guards. But the carpet was only the opening move in a much more sophisticated game.
She understood with perfect clarity what Caesar truly wanted. It was not just Egypt's vast wealth, not just its grain that fed Rome. He wanted an alliance with a mind as sharp, as strategic, as brilliant as his own. And so she offered him far more than her body. She offered him her razor-sharp intellect. She offered him her deep knowledge of the East. This was not mere seduction. This was the foundation of a true partnership, a union of two of the most powerful minds in the world.
On the Nile River, they became lovers. But more importantly, they became allies. Their conversation ranged from military strategy to personal ambition, from Egyptian history to Roman politics. Each recognized in the other a kindred spirit, someone who understood that power comes not from armies alone, but from the ability to move hearts and minds. By dawn, their plan was formed. Caesar's legions would restore her to the throne. Egypt would become Rome's ally, and Cleopatra would become not merely a pharaoh, but a force that would reshape Mediterranean politics. What began as seduction became something far more dangerous, a true partnership between two geniuses. Cleopatra had gambled everything, and she had won.
Cleopatra had earned her power through intelligence, strategy, and sheer force of will. Roman legions entered Alexandria at dawn. They came not as conquerors, but as allies, convinced by a woman that Egypt was worth saving. Within hours, the forces that opposed her vanished. Resistance crumbled before Roman discipline and Egyptian acceptance of the inevitable. She returned to her palace as a visionary who had emerged victorious. The throne was hers again. But now it was different, fortified not just by Egyptian tradition, but by Roman military might. It was occupied by a woman who had proven she could outthink her enemies, seduce her allies, and transform defeat into triumph. In the temple, priests confirmed her divine right. In the streets, citizens celebrated. In the palace, administrators bent to her will. For while she had won Egypt back, she had not yet fully reckoned with the cost. Caesar would not remain her ally forever, and in Rome, a younger, colder, more ruthless politician was already watching, calculating, planning. Her restoration was complete, but her greatest trials were only just beginning.
History remembers Cleopatra's affair with Mark Antony as a great love story. But the truth was far more complicated. Their meeting at Tarsus was not by chance. It was calculated. Cleopatra arrived on a golden barge, wearing the regalia of a pharaoh, an entire theater of power designed to captivate a man who had conquered nations. And it worked. Mark Antony was seduced not just by her beauty, but by her intelligence. She understood what he needed: military funds from Egypt's treasury in exchange for military protection of her throne. What began as political necessity became something neither expected. Whether it was love or brilliant strategy, or perhaps both, history will never know. But in that moment, two of history's most powerful figures became partners, and their partnership would reshape the Mediterranean world.
By 31 BC, Octavian had waited long enough. He recognized the threat Cleopatra and Mark Antony posed to his vision of Rome. But Octavian did not declare war on Antony, a Roman citizen.
Instead, he declared war on Cleopatra, on Egypt. The Battle of Actium was the largest naval battle the ancient world had ever seen. Hundreds of ships, thousands of sailors. Octavian's fleet was superior, better organized, better trained, and better led. As the battle raged, Cleopatra made a choice. Her barge, laden with Egyptian gold, turned toward the horizon. She ran. And in that moment, watching his lover abandon the battlefield, Mark Antony made his choice. He abandoned his fleet. He abandoned his soldiers. He abandoned his duty. And he followed her. His forces, left without their commander, were systematically destroyed. The greatest military commander of the age had chosen love over leadership. Octavian watched from his flagship as the Antonian fleet burned. He had won. Rome was his. The Mediterranean was his. The future was his. But what no one could know was that this victory would plant the seeds for everything that followed. For this was not an end. This was the beginning of the most tragic finale in history.
Alexandria, once the jewel of the Mediterranean, became a tomb. Octavian's forces surrounded the city, and hope died. The commanders who had once served Cleopatra began to abandon her, not in dramatic rebellion, but in quiet defection. They understood what she could not yet accept. The end had come. Inside the palace, she watched her world collapse through the slow erosion of loyalty. The brilliant strategist who had seduced Caesar and Antony was now simply a woman watching everything slip through her fingers. Antony understood before she did. He had been a soldier long enough to recognize a losing battle, but she could not let go. In the final night of her reign, they held each other in the palace chambers. Two people who had changed the world, now powerless to change their own fate. When dawn broke over Alexandria, it broke over a Roman city, her palace, her world, all gone.
Octavian had won everything. The battle, the city, the empire. But he had not yet won her. She sat in that cell, stripped of her power. Octavian made one final mistake. He announced he would parade her through Rome as a trophy. But Cleopatra understood what Octavian never grasped. There are victories greater than survival. A basket arrived. Hidden within was the asp, the sacred serpent of Egypt. She did not hesitate. She reached into that basket with the clarity that had defined her life. She chose not escape or surrender, but a final autonomous choice. The venom moved swiftly. When Octavian's soldiers entered, they found her at rest, dignified and eternal. He had won the war, but she had won her death. Cleopatra became not merely a ruler, but a symbol of genius and ultimate agency. 2,000 years later, her name resonates, not as a victim, but as a woman who commanded her own destiny. In choosing how to die, she chose how she would be remembered forever.